I remember one night before Easter when I was younger and I was still living with my parents. Naturally, since my younger sister and I were children, we believed in the Easter Bunny. It was late and I was really excited, so I was having trouble sleeping. I woke up around 4 a.m. and automatically noticed a strange smell. A smell of wet hay. I looked in the corner of my room only to see someone who I assumed later was one of my parents dressed up in a cheap and dirty-looking Easter Bunny costume. I was afraid that if he saw me, he wouldn't give me any Easter eggs, so I turned to face the wall and tried to fall asleep. I was awoken by my sister the next morning, and we looked for our Easter eggs. I beat my sister and found the most eggs, but there was one that didn't look like the others. I asked my mom and dad, but they said they didn't know where it came from. Fast forwarding, a few years later I was in high school. I was with my sister at the lunch table and we were talking about creepy things from our childhood. So naturally I thought of that Easter. What my sister told me next gave me chills. She told me that she remembers waking up and seeing it too and smelling wet hay. I never told her that story until then, and there was no way she could have known it smelled like that, unless she was awake too. We later asked our parents if they ever dressed up as the Easter Bunny, and they told us that they never even bought a costume. It really freaked us out. As if this story couldn't get any creepier, we later found out from our neighbor that they saw something like that too, except they saw the Easter Bunny outside in their backyard staring at them. Nobody ever figured out who this guy was or where he came from, but I hope I never see him again. This happened a long time ago. I am almost 20, and this happened when I was 5 or 6. I'll give you the basic description of my house. My bedroom is the farthest room in the house. If you walk out of my room, there is a hallway that leads to the dining room. There are a few rooms on both sides. My mom's room is to the right next to mine, then a guest room, and then my bathroom. On Easter morning, around 4 in the morning, I woke up. This was normal for me. I normally use the bathroom around that time. I didn't sleep with my door closed at the time, so it was open. I never liked to use my bathroom because it was too far away from my room, and I was scared of the dark. But that night I wanted to use my own bathroom. I walked to my doorway and looked down the hallway into the dining room. And you know how little kids take pictures with the life-size Easter Bunny? Well, there was one in my dining room. This thing was huge, and being a little kid, it was pretty scary. The lights weren't on, and I didn't want to turn them on being a little kid. Things went through my mind like, what if it won't give me my basket, or what if it hurts me? I decided not to go to my bathroom and went to my mom's. My mom was in her bed, and trust me, I checked. I stayed in her room for 5 minutes, and when I went out to go back to my room, the Easter Bunny was gone. No one ever believes me when I tell them this story, and it always makes me really upset because I know it was true. In the late 1940s, a man in a rabbit costume was commonly seen wandering the neighborhood of a small town in Fairfax County, in Virginia, and watching children that were at play. When any children talked to him and asked who he was, he would tell them he was the Easter Bunny. He would always stand out there on nice spring afternoons and watch the children until they went inside so he could find out where they lived. At night, he would break into their houses and hack up their parents with an axe. Then he kidnapped the children and disappeared into the night. After a while, when many of the kids in the neighborhood had disappeared, the police finally connected the murders and kidnappings to the strange man who had been seen posing as the Easter Bunny. However, he proved to be elusive. Nobody knew who he was or where he lived. Shortly afterwards, the Bunny Man was seen again in another neighborhood in the daytime. But when police responded, he was already gone. The police decided to do a night patrol and try to catch him. Sure enough, the man in the bunny costume was seen heading towards a house, and he was holding an axe. The police pulled their car over and heard him singing, "Here comes the Easter Bunny, hacking up all the parents. I can hippity-hoppity, bloodshed's on its way." They yelled for him to freeze, but he ignored them and kept on walking. They got out of the car and warned him to put the axe down or they would shoot. Instead, the man charged at the police, swinging the axe above his head. The police had no choice but to shoot him. Their bullets ripped through his costume, and he fell to the ground. Emergency services were called, and the man in the bunny costume was pronounced dead on the scene. The police tore off his mask and looked at his face, but they didn't recognize him. Nobody knew who he was, and they were never able to identify him. Another problem was that with him dead, there was no one to tell the police what he had done with all the kids he kidnapped. Not too long later, two fishermen were down by the bridge when they heard a bunch of children crying. They went to investigate and found a shed underneath the bridge. The door of the shed had a big padlock on it. They could hear children inside screaming for help. One of the fishermen stayed there and tried to calm the kids while the other ran off to get the police. When the police arrived, they fetched bolt cutters and broke the lock, letting the kids out. Then they searched the shed and discovered a bunny costume and all kinds of weapons. The police concluded that this was the secret hideout of the Easter Bunny killer. They cleared it out, took everything into evidence, and then had it demolished. A year later, the mayor wanted the town to forget the Easter Bunny ever existed. He banned the celebration of Easter and outlawed the sale of Easter eggs. Over the years, the story of the Bunny Man became an urban legend, prompting thrill seekers to venture over to the bridge where his shack once stood. It was a common dare among teenagers to venture out there, especially on Halloween night. Those who dared to go often report seeing a figure standing in the tunnel with an axe in its hand. If no figure was visible, any teenager, brave, stupid, or drunk enough to go inside the tunnel would be caught in a blinding flash of light. When it cleared, their hacked-up bodies would be hanging from the top of the bridge. The Bunny Man's ghost was rumored to be the cause of this. They say he also roams the nearby woods, chopping up teenagers and any trespassers he finds in them. Every year on Halloween, the cops try to keep thrill seekers from going to Bunny Man Bridge. Since there is a railroad on top of the tunnel, it's illegal to wander around on top of the bridge or loiter around it. If caught by the cops, they'll give you a warning to get out while you can. If you value your life, please obey them. Love and mental instability caused 29-year-old Robert Irwin to murder 3 people on Easter weekend in 1937. Irwin, dubbed the Mad Sculptor by the press, was an artist with an obsession for a young woman named Ethel. He decided that if he could not have her as his love, that he would murder her. Irwin went to her home to find her mother Mary and her sister Veronica. He claims he murdered the 2 accidentally, stabbing and strangling them and discarding their half-naked bodies. But the mad sculptor didn't end the massacre there. He stabbed and killed a male tenant of the apartment with an ice pick as well. The crimes were heavily publicized at the time, especially since Veronica was a nude model for magazines. Irwin, who had previously spent time in a mental institution for trying to cut off his own genitals with a razor, confessed to the murders at the trial. He was sentenced to life in prison. James Ruppert never felt good enough, and his insecurities led him to murder on Easter Sunday in 1975. Ruppert walked downstairs of the home he shared with his mother and slaughtered 11 family members. He first entered the kitchen with a .357 Magnum and a .22 caliber handgun and began firing. At one point he sat on the couch in the living room and took out 4 of his nieces and nephews one by one. The victims included his 65-year-old mother, Charity, his 42-year-old brother, Leonard, and Leonard's family. According to reports, Ruppert was brought to his breaking point after his mother threatened to kick him out if he didn't straighten up his life. It is believed he resented Leonard for being more successful than him in life. He is serving 2 life sentences now, and was recently denied parole for one of the deadliest shootings in history. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really wanted to do something for the holidays. I will be putting out another video Sunday morning, because while looking up stuff for this video, I found just a lot of stuff about creepy looking Easter bunnies. A lot of them are like really old vintage photos, but there is a ridiculous amount of real creepy Easter bunny photos out there, so I'm just going to do a quick little video of photos that I can find of all the creepiest Easter bunnies through history. So that'll be out Sunday morning just for fun. Until then, thanks again for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment letting me know what you thought of these stories or what kind of stories or videos you'd like to see in the future.